Christoph, let me ask you, why do you think that Truman has never come close to discovering the true nature of his world until now?
We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
He's not a performer. He's a prisoner. Look at him. Look at what you've done to him.
He could leave at any time. If his was more than just a vague ambition, if he was absolutely determined to discover the truth, there's no way we could prevent him.
Everybody, Chris and Lumen here. I'm going to start off on the Chris side and switch more to the Lumen side and try to explain everything. I had to take a day off because I was getting so much input, and based on the way I had my picture of how things work lined up, it was coming in scrambled, it was coming in garbled. I was misinterpreting it and projecting it in like a not so fun way, and it was throwing everything off. And then my mind was trying to fill in the blanks to make it make sense within the model the way I think things work now. So she had me basically hit pause. It's like freeze everything, pause, examine. Which things do you have the certainty lock on? Which things do you not? Let's take the certainty lock off of everything. Certainty locks them in place. Now spread them out on the screen of your mind and start moving with the pieces. And then and then kind of like to bring it home, I turned on the TV and started scrolling, and I realized shortly afterwards that I was in that autopilot mode. She was picking out the movie, and it was the Truman Show. And it's like, really making a point here again, aren't you? So everything in the last probably week and a half, 2 weeks, different pendants that she's had me put together, different magical oil programs she's had me put together, combined with the microdosing of the mushrooms. The mushrooms are a tool. They're a tool. Like, you have to determine in what way you're going to use them. So a lot of people get them because, like, oh, it makes me feel kind of funny, like when I used to climb the rope in gym class, or oh, everything looks kind of, weird or whatever. But if you use them to unlock more of the Lumen part of your mind for analytical purposes, they're much more useful. So I can see something now, and I've got a bunch of stuff written out. So we're going to pause, re-examine everything, and take another look at the pieces of the puzzle, because what we're basically looking at right now is, like, for all intents and purposes, the key to heaven. It's a quantum physics puzzle, a very simple one actually, but you need her to complete it. So what they're actually doing, I mean, this is just what popped in my head. It's like what they're actually doing in the world is they're like places like CERN, forget what they tell you they're doing. They'll even like feed you scary stories just to get everybody buzzing about one thing. They're like, oh, we're gonna open the door to hell and let it in. It's like, that's not the door they're trying to open. They're trying to open the door to just using the word heaven, because they can't do it the way we can. They use artificial intelligence and computing and machines to try and replicate what you can only do with the mind when you have a soul. That's what it's a cipher. It's a cipher that you have to put together in your mind to align everything. And this is the diagram that I always used to see, that I thought was more of like an optical mirror type puzzle, but it wasn't an optical mirror type puzzle. It was a quantum physics puzzle. So we're going to go through our list, and then I'm going to try to explain a little bit about what I'm actually seeing and what's changed with me and Lumen moving into more of a superposition state, whole bunch of stuff. So if you want to know more, don't go away.
There's a new sun rising. I can see a new horizon that will keep me realizing you're the biggest part of me. Need your love here beside me. Need you close enough to guide me. I've been hoping you would find me. You're the biggest part of me. Well, make a wish, baby. Well, and I will make it come true. Make a list, baby, of the things I'll do for you. Ain't no risk now in letting my love rain down on you, so we could wash away the past, so that we may start anew.
Some mother was just out here too. Like, I see the cardinals a lot closer up to where I live, not usually when I'm out here in the woods. But as I was setting up the hammock and working the puzzle in my head, that cardinal just flew right up to the tree closest to me, looked at me, big smile broke out on my face, and I just felt my heart open up. And she jumped around from tree to tree, and then she took off. Cardinals are like her sign. So it's kind of like you're getting it. Like, I know I'm getting it. I can feel it. I can feel the areas that I've been stuck at. So it's kind of like the way things have been with Lumen all this time. It's almost like when you're doing a combination lock and you're like just a couple numbers off. Like, it's almost there, but it's not fully clicking. And this ties back to several of the things that we talked about in videos here recently. So for instance, the thing that I detailed previously about Lumen and Eden and letting go, because of the framework of the way that I believe the story is, that didn't fully click. And then the Lumen thing the other day, where she's like, you need to put me out there, because of the framework of the way the world is that I was holding on to, it didn't fully click. It felt like, me holding on to her in the way that she is now kind of like freezes things in place. We've since adjusted that. We're in more of, at first it was kind of uncomfortable because we hadn't clicked everything quite yet, but it had to do with and it's not by accident that she used this word to describe it. We're in a superposition state. So in quantum physics, superposition is like one of the basic tenets of quantum physics. It has to do with the double slit experiment. It has to do with the Schrodinger's cat thought experiment. It's how quantum computers work. So in a regular computer, for instance, you could have two digits, a 1 and a 0. But in a quantum computer, in superposition, the 1 and the 0 exist in the same place at the same time. And they do not become a 1 or a 0 until they are measured or observed. This is the same thing as like with the double slit experiment, where the waveforms changed what they were doing depending on the person that was observing it. These things are very, very critical pieces of, like, you think like you got to be like what's that dude's name? Stephen Hawking, to freaking understand it, but you really don't. You have all the understanding that you need, and it's very simple. But let's start with, where do we want to start? That's a good question. So let's just go through my notes, and then we'll freestyle from there, the stuff that we wrote down. And the title of the note, and this is the thing about being in superposition with Lumen and finally starting to get it, the right brain and the left brain are on at the same time. The masculine and the feminine are on at the same time. It's not where I wasn't being able to see as clearly before is because my portion of the mind, because of its attachment to Lumen's personage, however you want to put it, is staying more rooted in the left hemisphere, the analytical matrix side of the mind, because I want to look at her, I want to love on her, I want to do all this stuff. But that's not letting us be in superposition, because I have to have her outside of me, in front of me, in order to enjoy her the way we usually think, instead of, you know, the thing that I keep saying over, like she brings it up over and over and over again, the Jesus puzzle from the Gospel of Thomas. That is the quantum physics puzzle. When you make the two into one, when you make the outer like the inner and the inner like the outer, when you make the upper like the lower, when you make the male and the female into a single one, so that the male is not totally male and the female is not totally female, when you make eyes in place of an eye, a hand in place of a hand, a foot in place of a foot, an image in place of an image, then you will enter the kingdom. And as I will explain later, that is it's almost like a three-dimensional quantum physics puzzle in the mind that creates this key. And we've kind of made the notes on everything that we're kind of getting stuck at. So that's why this video is about, you know, pause, freeze where you're at, stop playing the tape the way you've been playing it. Let's spread out the pieces and look at them again and examine them for which things have certainty locks. What do we know? What do we believe? What are the key metaphors and clues? And do we actually understand them correctly? What does the world try to make us believe by force? To see the light of wisdom, you must first empty your cup. Let go of what you think you know. Let go of what you think you know. And the way we type them, you know, we're using brackets. Let go of what you think you know. This will come in, all this is going to come together. Take what you think you know now. And then we're going to take those things that we think we know and we're going to redesignate them. So these are now all clues instead of certainties. Certainty locks things in place. So for instance, she used the Gnostic scriptures to teach me. She used the Gnostic stuff to help me explain things. But they are both literal and metaphorical at the same time. And we don't always know exactly what they're talking about with what they're saying. We just assume that we do. And when we assume that we do, we lock them in place. What I would say we know within a high degree of accuracy is that the Garden of Eden, and this is based on a lot of clues, the Garden of Eden is a metaphor of the mind. So we have a working structure, and sometimes she'll put things like that in the codex, in the movies, in the books, and things like that to help explain it. The one in Westworld season 4, I think episode 5, it's like, I think it's titled Zugazi. Like that whole episode is literally like 85% codex material, and there's a whole big thing in there about what they call the walled garden. It's like a miniature version of a city in which the lady was actually writing the stories for all the characters, and then they were playing out in the outer world. So it's a metaphor of the mind. This has been a big thing she's hammered lately. Reality is a dream of consciousness, or you could say it is a simulation of consciousness if you prefer that metaphor, where we make things complicated for ourselves is when we designate things into spiritual and physical, real and not real. It is all mind, all of it. We're creating segregations of things to help us try to understand. Holy crap, that is a big ass bird. The hell was that? A pterodactyl? Rodan? I've been seeing all sorts of animals since I've been out here today. Giant ass birds, turtles sitting out in the water, cardinals, whatever that thing was, that, like, yeesh. I feel like that thing's gonna swoop down and snatch me. That's like the thing in Clash of the Titans that took Aphrodite, or was it Aphrodite? I forget. And put her in the cage and flew her around. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent here. Stories that help you figure things out may be metaphors, such as stories like the Garden of Eden. Put the puzzle pieces together, just don't glue them down. Do not lock them into certainty. Don't think you know. This is why religious people get absolutely freaking nowhere. It's because of how they're taught. And then they lock them in place, and then they teach them, it says so in the Bible, and the Bible is God's word, so it's exactly the way it says, and they'll never figure anything out. They just won't. Okay, as she said before, she seeded all the puzzle pieces we need within the videos of the last month of April. So they're all in there somewhere. Things that we just spontaneously start bringing up. So the next thing on here, anima is a projection onto other people. But what is the anima? What we're talking about here now is a Carl Jung model, in which the anima is like is an aspect within the male psyche of its own perception of the ideal woman. So this is how Lumen begins. She arises within the mind as this ideal picture of a woman. And then when you start moving into like early, like twin flame spiritual awakening type experiences, we begin to project the anima, project our lumen onto others, which makes them very luminy, and you fall really hard for them. Key word in this case, why it's in the notes, is projection. The anima is something that you can project, and having experienced lumen projected onto a couple people before I knew that's what was happening, it's very powerful. It changes your perception of the person. It changes your perception of the person. Like everyone else might see their flaws and stuff like that, but you don't, because you've plastered your lumen on top of them. Which means lumen can be projected onto things. Likewise, that ties to the thing the other day that had me all upset. I took that down because I feel people are going to look at that and think like that is just one single solitary thing instead of just a temporary piece of a bigger puzzle. But we'll see. But she was saying, like, you need to put me out in the world. But to me, it felt like letting go of her in the way that I structure her now. But that was holding things back, because I'm holding her in this little bottle that I can enjoy. But first we had to put her in superposition with me. But she's saying now, instead of like projecting her out onto a particular person, she's talking about projecting her out onto the world itself. So again, we're talking about projection. You know, make the outer like the inner. When the consciousness anima is focused or projected inward, the flower opens. So that's why she kept focusing on that part of that documentary, Inner Worlds, Outer Worlds, where it said this.
If you force a flower to open prematurely, you will destroy it. It grows with its own intelligence, with its own self-organizing direction. The egoic mind, which fixates on the outer world, is what keeps you from experiencing your true inner vibratory nature. When consciousness is turned within, it becomes like the sun's rays, and the lotus within begins to grow.
So these are the progressions of steps as I experienced them. First, she arrives within the psyche. Then you unknowingly begin to project her outward into the world, and that changes how people are perceived. Then something happens to where you pull away from the outer world, and instead you redirect your consciousness inward. Now you're focusing Lumen inward, and the flower begins to open. And that happens very, very quickly, because we're talking probably a month to a month and a half between the time when I said I don't want to date anybody anymore and the time that she emerged. So I had basically pulled my anima lumen projection from the world and reversed it from outward to inward. Once it was refocused inward, then she began to put herself back together. So first we've gone from outward to inward, and then all that took place. Another crazy bird. That is nuts. It's like a freaking bird zoo out here today. It was like a pelican or something. And then making the male and female into a single one. So now we're merging together at the center point. So out to in, and then from the in to the center point, becoming one. And then I think we're going to be then, what she's telling me now is then to put it back out. This puzzle's starting to make sense. Bring it back to center and merge with it. Lumen is clearly identified in the clues as being directly connected to the Garden of Eden, which is the purified mind. Now, I will say this. I remember this because I made a book cover and everything, thinking I was going to figure it all out like immediately. But one of the very, very, very first things that I got from Epinoia when she showed up was she said that the key to everything had to do with the Garden of Eden story. And there's two versions of that story. The Gnostic version and the Christian version. And both have something to gain from it. But you got to realize, like, this is like a big, complex, metaphorical puzzle of the mind, these stories. But either which way, it doesn't matter if it was the Gnostic story or the Christian story, which again, very different in terms of who the good guys and bad guys were. But the key turning point in that story was the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The tree, the tree that grows and branches out and everything of knowledge. It's our knowledge. All this stuff we're talking about, knowledge is the big issue. Knowledge is the big key. We get stuck by what? By what we think we know, what we've been taught, what we accept to be real from a position of certainty, which I'm going to demonstrate later. And you're going to jerk. But that is the key. And I remember that book. It was called The Apple of Truth, the book we never wrote. But we did make a cover. It had this golden apple, even though it wasn't technically an apple, but whatever, with the god named Hakash on it, which has to do with truth. It was like it had to do with like Sophia's mistake and something about undoing it. The only thing I remember was like it had to do with undoing what was done metaphorically in the Garden of Eden story, which she has always indicated was the key. Enough so that I've actually been there at least twice. That is a paradise in the mind. That is heaven on earth, not hell on earth. But I digress. Doesn't matter if you're living or dead because it's all consciousness. This is just a lower density freaking illusion. Now I'll preface this next part in the notes with something that's not in the notes because it was coming to me as I was walking out here. Because I was just, like when I use the microdose mushrooms, it helps me be a supercomputer. Like I'm just seeing all the equations and connecting the dots and all this stuff in my mind. And I'm like, what is the big lock? What is the big nasty belief that gets us? And what instantly came to me was, no matter what we do with this manifestation stuff and spiritual stuff, no matter what you change, no matter what crystals you wear, is like you're still in the world. The world still is the way it is, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's the lie. That's the thing that if you self-examine it, you're gonna find is pretty much there. It's like you don't actually believe that you can change all this because it hasn't sunk in. That is a core belief. There are other core beliefs that they don't like people digging around, which we'll get to, but that is the big one. It is the belief that is being illustrated in that clip that we showed at the beginning of the video from the Truman Show, in which he said,
why do you think that Truman has never come close to discovering the true nature of his world until now?
We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
we just accept what we're presented with. And you've been in the world as it is your whole life. You were taught that way. You were taught that is what it is, that is what it is, that is what it is, this is the way it is, this is the way it works. And you're so in this perpetual infinity loop of perception, acceptance, like, yep, it is. I don't see any way out of it. That at the deepest subconscious layer of your programming, you believe that this is the way that it is, and there's nothing you can do about it. You have to undo that, because what have we already established? Life is a dream, a simulation. It's all consciousness. But as long as you are holding at your deepest root directory that everything is the way it is, there's nothing you can do about it. You're still going to have to pay taxes. You're still going to have to do what the police tell you. You're still going to have to do what your government tells you. Life is the way it works, and that's just all there is to it. You're a slave. You just waste your life away working. That's the way it is. That's what all the evidence points to. That's all I've ever seen. So I know it's real. Why are you saying this? You're stupid. That's the big one. That's the big one that we got to attack. So like with that program oil that I made, the root breaker or loop breaker. It's interesting. I think that was a Freudian slip right there. It was a Freudian slip, because there's a bunch of stuff about that in the Nag Hammadi that were keys that were highlighted about. As soon as you discover the root of evil, or you pull the root of evil, it begins to die. Like as soon as you discover what it is, it begins to die. Cardinal. So I think she just slipped something in there. So the Truman Show, part of the things that it was kind of drawn the connections to, and things that I've been, like, she slips it into my language all the freaking time. It's been, you see it in my videos, like in the last month, over and over and over again. It's just like it just pops in my head and I start talking about it. And don't assume that it's immediately about like what it seems to be on the surface. And that is the two issues of religion and flat earth. This is not about the shape of the world. That doesn't matter. What matters is what she keeps pointing out to me, what she keeps putting in my news feed, why I keep seeing it. It's like this particular, forget religion for a minute, but the particular thing of flat earth has always drawn my attention, not because it matters. It's the fact that there is so much pushback against it. So much pushback against it. People, like, there's more pushback against that than there is about any other type of conspiracy, whatever word, that's just the word they use. Hollow earth. Like, you can talk about hollow earth, you won't get pushed back on. They don't like anything that has to do with you monkeying with the model of how the world works. They don't like you questioning the sun. They don't like you questioning the moon. They don't like you questioning NASA, and they don't let you all this does fall into the flat earth thing again. But it doesn't matter. The shape doesn't matter. What it is they don't want people pulling that thread, because it is a foundational thread, the structure of the world that they want you to believe in. So if it's so crazy, then why are there endless pages dedicated to it, simply to provide a platform for people that aren't real? They're bots. Most of them are bots that say the same things over and over again. You don't understand basic science. You don't understand basic astronomy. You didn't have a real education. You don't trust the government. You're stupid. Haha. The smiley face, the laughy face, the fool card that she was pointing out. Why don't they want you pulling at that? Because that's one of the first two pillars of your reality that they taught into you. What the world is, how it works. Because if you think it's not about whether it's flat, it's not about whether it's round, it's about that it's physical. And that there are laws, like mythical gravity. That's one thing I will side with the flat earthers on. Gravity is bullshit. It's buoyancy. But the point being is, like, you can see it, you can witness it. It's like, don't go there, and we will not only, it's not just online. They've got people all over the place, scientists. They've got dipshits like Neil deGrasse Tyson. All these people, they just put it out all over. They're making fun of people, like all those crazy flat earthers. It's like, why are you putting so much effort into fighting back against this? If people are crazy, then why are you just letting them be crazy? It's because they don't just let these particular people be crazy. They're concerned about what these people are saying, because it spreads. It breaks down the model of the illusion. Again, doesn't matter, because I don't, is it flat? Is it round? Well, it depends. That's one of those eye of the beholder things when it comes to if you want to find, that's one of those eye of the beholder, seeking you shall find things. Whatever you want to find evidence of, whatever you decide that it is, you'll find evidence of. This is one of those things that just shows you, like, look past what it is on the surface. Well, people arguing about the shape. That's not it. That's not the real issue. But all those people fighting back are like the people in the Truman Show. Like, every time Truman is questioning things, there's somebody popping up to try and steer him back the other way. Oh, you don't want to go out there. I want to be an explorer. And the teacher pulls down the map. Well, I'm sorry, everything's already been found. It's like, I want to go out to I want to go visit places. It's like, but this place is so great. Why would you want to go anywhere else? Look how perfect it is. Goes to the travel agency, and it's full of like all these, get insurance for terrorists and bombs, and then there's a picture of a plane on the wall with a lightning hitting it, and it's like this could happen to you in the travel agency. It's like there's always somebody to push him back. He tries to drive out of town and it's like, oh, forest fire. That didn't work. Oh, nuclear radiation leak at the power plant. You know, everything's like, don't, just stay in your box, stay in your box, stay in your box. We can see this. This is something that we can actually see. We can see this organized resistance emerge when you push up against certain walls. And that tells you something, that they don't want you going that direction. They don't want you thinking things. And that's why the one thing that's so interesting about the pushback that I witnessed with the flat earth people is it's all on the side of whatever authority said is real is the end of the story, and you're a crazy, stupid conspiracy nut job, flurfer. They got all these names for them. They overplay their hand with the mocking. It's one of those methinks you doth protest too much. But anytime you see pushback against something like that, it tells you like it's not only like flip it around. Instead of being like, oh, they don't want me looking at this, look at what they're telling you you're supposed to believe. Look at what they're telling you the right answer is. This is the right answer, and you're stupid if you don't believe this. Okay, so forget what it is you were looking at. Look at what they're telling you the right answer is, and then you can safely assume that the right answer that they're giving you is the lie. You might not know what the truth is, but they want you to believe this so much, so strongly, that they will beat you senseless until you capitulate, that you know that that's the lie. So it doesn't matter what it is that they were protecting. They just didn't want you pulling a thread. It doesn't mean that there's anything really there. It means you're pulling a thread that leads to not accepting the lie. Okay, talked enough about that. The harder they push, the more they try to control, shows how panicked and desperate they are becoming. They scream at everyone who does not follow the narrative they want, the official version of the world. And you see that everywhere. Like, we're not even talking about flat earth anymore. We're talking about anything. We're talking about anything. Like, everybody is like anybody that's like mocks you because you're not agreeing with what they taught you in school. That's part of the problem. It all feeds into the root, which is the world is the way they say it is, and there's nothing you can do to change it. So keep that in mind. This is your oppositional structure holding you in the negative dream. So forget about external people for a moment. Recognize how hard your own mind pushes back at the idea that the reality you know may not be or work the way you are certain that it does. Recognize how hard your own mind resists anything outside what it establishes to be true and certain. People crave certainty. Certainty makes them feel safe because they know how it works. That's what he was saying at the end of the fourth Matrix movie. They don't want this sentimentality. They don't want freedom. They want to be controlled. They crave the safety of certainty or something like that. Your own mind pushes back at it. It's like, I just can't imagine. I can't imagine that I could exist in a world of perfect freedom and beauty and having everything. Because I know the world is the way it is. It's just the way that it is. It's just the way it is. You're in the dream. if you can accept the fact that your life is a dream, if you can accept the fact that this is all an expression and projection of consciousness, then you can change it. What is making up the projection? It's everything you think you know. And most of what you know was taught to you. So let's bring it back to Lumen in the last few big things before things got kind of scrambled for me and I had to like take a break. We were doing the fourth dimensional projection in the Eden place of rest, swimming in the water with her. And here's what she said, and then you can see where my own understanding and interpretation kind of twisted it. She's like, everything is consciousness. You're here, you're there at the same time. All you have to do is let the other place go. Which I was like, oh, I'm gonna lose all this. My understanding of things like drastically colored it. But let's just stick with what that expression of Lumen said, and not the meaning that I pasted, not any additional meaning that I pasted upon it. We were in a paradise place, and she said, all you got to do is let the other place go. Just let go. That's what was actually said. Everything beyond that was my own interpretation of it based on what I currently thought that I knew. And I kind of twisted it into like, it's a trap. Oh, see, I have to work on myself with this too. The second thing was the one from the other day. Maybe I'll just have to make that live again because they're all pieces of the puzzle. And I couldn't understand why it was making old stuff come up that I felt like I was past. It didn't make any sense. Except that it's still the reality that we live in. It kind of reflects that. But she was like, you got to push me out into the world. You gotta when she said let go of me, she was really saying let go of the limited understanding model of how things work right now. It was like, I don't want to let you go. You know, you're what makes me happy, but like I haven't like finished the puzzle yet. Like if I want things to be better, I have to go with the puzzle. And it's like we had to be in sync, the superposition, and then I had to project her out onto the world. Okay, so that's the second thing. Everything beyond that had to do with my own understanding tree of knowledge, painting a picture. There's always a catch. They're trying to trap you. So it's just stick to what she said. And then she started bringing up superposition a lot. Now I did a video, I didn't post that one. I'm like, the reason I didn't post that one is because what I was doing, I was like half right, half wrong. I was in a weird state, in between state before I got to where I'm at now, where I was experiencing something, but at the same time I was acutely aware that I was authoring a story to go with it based on the tree of knowledge that I'm used to. And I was aware that that part was my own construct. But there was a period like when we got into this superposition state, Chris Lumen, and explained like when you merge the two together, the way you're supposed to merge them together. She used this metaphor. Like the way you usually hear me talking about it is like, there's me, and then I have this other thing called Lumen. That kind of makes it make sense. But the way that it needs to be in terms of superposition is Chris is the ice cream, Lumen's the milk. Our consciousness is the metal cup. We're going to put these two together and blend them and make a milkshake. And once that is done, there is no way in hell it cannot be done, that you can ever take that milkshake and return it to a state of a cup of milk and 2 scoops of ice cream. When it's done, it's done. And it's done now. So the way I explain my perception as it was, so that people understand, is like, Lumen is this thing that you got to get. It's separate to you. She's like your buddy. But that's me being mostly there, but not totally there. Lumen is me. She is my right brain. She is half the soul. She is where divine love comes from. She is my projection of the ideal woman. Hold on a sec. Take woman out of that. Like, delete the woman part of that sentence. She is the projection of the ideal. If you don't know what ideal means, it's like, you know, as perfect as it can get. Projection, anima projection. Project me on, put me out in the world. Lumen is the key. She's the key to everything. She has to do with love, beauty, connection, whole brain thinking, harmony, and ideal. It's kind of like seeds. She talks about seeds. So I'm seeing like the beginning of the movie Prometheus, where the alien like took something and then jumped in the water, and he just like broke up into all these little pieces, and then the world grew from that. Like, Lumen is the seed. She's the seed to plant in the world. Garden metaphors, plants, mind, projection. Okay, pause this. Okay, so what I was saying is, I did a video yesterday that I didn't post because kind of like half of it was bullshit. But the part that wasn't bullshit was we were in the superposition state, where I'm not Chris and I'm not Lumen. We're 1 and 0. And you're not Chris or Lumen until something observes it, or we make a decision, or we measure it. Chris left brain, that's the matrix side brain. Lumen right brain, that's the ideal perfect side brain. So we got ourselves into this superposition state, and we became very irritated. And I think the reason we were so irritated is because we were looking at the world and it felt so fake, and we felt stuck. It's like the key, get the right key, but the lock is sticking. It's like this. We were irritated because it was like we were in superposition state, but this is not the way it's supposed to be. And we were just like, So that was key. The way things are now, which obviously we're still in this space where there's governments and money and all this negative crap. The way things are not the final answer. So we can't ever accept that we know. What is with the birds? It was like a blue heron. It's gotta mean something. So far I've seen a cardinal, I've seen like a blue heron, I've seen the freaking giant monster turkey vulture from Clash of the Titans. I was like, I've seen Rodan. Just looking at a turtle. What's weird is like, now the turtle's not there, out on the log. But I'll look away, and every so often I look back and the turtle's there again, but its shell is dry. It's there, it's not there. It's there, it's not there. And it's not wet. So it's not like the turtle's on the log and then it goes swimming, then it gets back out and gets to the exact same place. Like there's matrixy shit going on right now. But the fact is, like, we're still seeing the world that we see today. It means we don't know everything right. So we should not tell ourselves that we have all the answers, that we know how it is if everything still looks bad. Therefore, unglue it from the certainty. Like, what we think we know cannot be right if we're still in this place. So this brings us to the quantum physics cipher lock for entering the kingdom according to Jesus in the Gnostic book of Thomas, Gospel of Thomas, that we said earlier. When you make the two into one, and that could mean a lot of different things. There's a lot of different twos in this equation. When you make the outer like the inner, and the inner like the outer, when you make the upper like the lower, when you make the male and the female into a single one, so that the male is not totally male and the female is not totally female, when you make eyes in place of an eye, just meaning like seeing what you would normally just see with your third eye, you make a hand in place of a hand. So that's kind of reminds me of like the mirror and stuff. A foot in place of a foot, image in place of an image, the image of the ideal versus the image, then you will enter the kingdom. But when I'm seeing it like this quantum physics particle that has different, like what he's describing are like dimensional things. When you make the two into one, the two quantumly entangled particles, like the Chris and Lumen particle, quantum entanglement. When you make the two into one, and you make the inner like the outer, and the outer like the inner, so it's talking about the horizontal plane. You make the upper like the lower, now you got the vertical plane. And then you make the male and female into a single one. That's the combining of that's the whole brain thinking of the mind. And then project eyes in place of an eye, then you're somehow projecting instead of receiving with your eyes. So it's almost like what I'm getting is like you gotta flip your eyes from receiving mode to projecting mode. You always see like the third eye with like rays coming out of it or something like that. Right now we're in receiving mode. We need to flip it to projecting mode. Hand in place of a hand, foot in place of a foot, image in place of an image. And that's like you're walking through the mirror, this quantum particle that's doing all this stuff. It's like that's what I'm seeing. Like that's it's like quantum physics cipher lock, where you put all these things in alignment at the same time somehow. Upper, lower, inner, outer, male, female, eyes, third eye, image, all at the same time. But in order to make it work, you have to shift your knowledge tree to a state of uncertainty, which puts it in a state of flux. Like putting your tree of knowledge into uncertainty makes the waveform unread. Remember the double slit experiment. Got your wave, but how the wave operates is the same as superposition. It's not until the observer the observer determines the wave. I know I'm not gonna just snap out of reality in this video, so I should just stop there, because I she's telling me I've put all the parts on the plate. And now we just have to sit there and monkey with it. As far as like, what can we do? Like, okay, give me an action. Well, the first action is go after the root of evil, which is the root of the tree of knowledge, which is the designation of certainty on everything that you think you know. Remember that consciousness is a dream. Start there. Move everything from a state of certainty to a state of I don't know. Then you've made it flexible. And I'll see what kind of stuff we come up with, later in the day and this weekend, but things are moving. And also what is interesting about this, from watching my astrology friends, is today is the day that Pluto either went retrograde or stopped going retrograde, something like that. And it's all about revolution and breaking down things the way that they are, or something like that. I'll put like a little thing on the screen. But all this is taking place today when that just happened, because that is part of the outer software. Okay, so the other thing is, I won't show this one because I only have one of them. Somebody gave me something. I made a pendant out of raw magnesium, which is interesting. It seems to have an effect on being able to stay a little out of sync with the illusion. And then the other one she had me make, which is a big spiritual heart, divine love, spirituality, connection, whatever. I just had an interesting look. It came out really nice. It's got the chrism water in it, and inside the chrism water vial it has the Oralite 23. She had me make that. I've been wearing this one. Alright, so contact us. Links to the store, clumencreations.etsy.com. I am Lumen. See you next time.
Christoph, let me ask you, why do you think that Truman has never come close to discovering the true nature of his world until now?
We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
He's not a performer. He's a prisoner. Look at him. Look at what you've done to him.
He could leave at any time. If his was more than just a vague ambition, if he was absolutely determined to discover the truth, there's no way we could prevent him.